People often ask me, how'd you get this gig? How do I get this gig? How do I get to host a beer tasting? I just want to bet. The amazing part of that is I want to bet and she's still wearing her clothes. Hey, it's a Renaissance festival and everybody had to be 21 to get in. Thank you. This is a raspberry beer. Framboise, a fruit lambic. Everybody in the audience gets one in a minute. My name is Seamus. I am a certified Cicerone, and that's how I got this gig. How many of you know what a certified Cicerone is? How many of you that have never been to my show know what a certified Cicerone is? You've never been to my show and you know what a certified Cicerone is? How?
Well, no, my son, my other son, not this one, he started the certification.
Started. So he passed his certified beer server, which is level 1, and now he's working on level 2.
Yeah. I don't know if he's going to do it or not because he switched over.
Well, that's all right. I'm in IT. I don't do beer full time. That's my retirement plan. Right now, yeah, beer doesn't pay as well as IT. I'm in sales. Yeah, when I get older, because, yeah, I'm old. But yeah, that's the goal. Excellent. All right, so for those of you that do not know what a certified Cicerone is, let me explain. A certified Cicerone is to beer as a certified sommelier is to wine. For those of you that don't know what wine is, what? Who? Oh, now she wants a ticket. Hey, she didn't like beer. Now I've given her a beer that she likes, and she wants it. Everybody applaud.
Hey!
Wait, crap, I haven't done beer. All right, remember this when I do rule 1.
We don't have beer yet.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Certified Cicerones. We study on our own and we are examined in 5 areas of beer. Storage and service. Beer flavors. Brewing process. By the way, beer flavors includes off flavors when it's wrong. Storage and pairing beer with food and beer styles. These are the 5 areas we are examined in. There are about 4,500 certified Cicerones worldwide. That is Cicerone. Questions, comments, rash political statements? Oh, wait, no, she gets changed. Nope. Yeah. Round of applause for all of them, everybody. Yeah, all right. So that's me, that's Cicerone. Staff, I'd like to introduce the people that are going to be taking care of you today. This is Butters and the rabbit ears. Butters! Over here in the kilt is Young. And the person that more than likely seated you today and took your tickets is my daughter Autumn. Lords and ladies, Butters and Young control the inventory. We're going to take really good care of Butters and Young, aren't we? If that sounded like a threat, it was. We don't sugarcoat anything here. All right, rules, because I have rules. The TABC tells me there's alcohol involved, so I have to have rules. The rules go like this. Rule 1. This is a beer tasting, not a beer chugging, guzzling, swilling. There will be no shotguns, keg stands, or beer bongs. If you're here to get hammered, quite frankly, you're in the wrong place. Feel free to exit a stage left and find a pub that's interested in getting you hammered as long as you've got a designated driver. This show is about education. This show is about respect for the beverage that we're going to put in your glass. All right, end of sermon. I'll get off my soapbox now. Rule 2. Rule 2 is for the next hour. This is a no smoking, no outside food venue. Oh, a shame. That's why. Got this lovely Cuban cigar, hand-rolled on the thigh of a virgin just this morning by Fidel himself. All right, if you're up on world events, you're aware that there's at least 3 problems with that statement, all right? Number 1, Fidel's been dead for a number of years. Number 2, if it was this morning, I got a FedEx, and I paid a fortune for it. We won't worry about whatever the 3rd problem is. Here's the thing, your sense of taste is tied inextricably to your nose. So if someone lights up a cigar or brings in a plate of fish and chips, it becomes really hard to figure out what's going on in your glass. We'll talk more about that when we get to smelling your beer in just a second. That's rule 2. Rule 3, last but not least, this is the one that people often find onerous. Rule 3. This is an audience participation show. Good news, bad news, good news, in order. Good news, you get to participate by drinking beer. Bad news, I do not ask rhetorical questions. When I ask you what you smell or what you taste in your glass, I really want to know. Now I'm fairly certain that somebody in the audience is sitting there going, oh, Seamus, you're the bleeding expert. I came here for you to tell me what I smell in the glass. I'm not here to tell you what you smell in the glass or what you taste in the glass. Here's the thing. I've studied a lot about beer. I've trained myself to figure out what I smell in the glass. I'm still not you. That is disturbingly sexy, darling.
Come on, me.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Here's the thing. Your sense of taste and smell, uniquely you. And it's uniquely you because our sense of taste and smell is built as we are a child into our adolescent years. It's got to do with our life experiences. I grew up on a farm in rural Virginia. I'm going to get hay out of beer that you never get hay out of. I've got a friend that grew up in Lambic, about 30 feet from an asphalt road. You know what he smelled in June, July, and August? Asphalt. Guess what he gets out of every red wine I set in front of him? Asphalt. Do I ever smell asphalt? Hell no. It's not what I grew up with. So when I ask what you smell, what you taste in your beer, here's the good news, the last bit of good news. There are no wrong answers. It's personal to you. And I'm not allowed to look at you and tell you that no, you don't smell that. Right? No, you don't taste that. I may roll my eyes inwardly, but it doesn't mean you're wrong. Last weekend, somebody sitting about where you're sitting right now looked at me with the very first beer and went, I smell coffee. And I went. Somebody over here went, I smell coffee. And then back over here, a woman went, me too. And in my head, I'm going, the fuck? Because it was a blonde ale. Stuck my nose in. I went, coffee. It was a coffee blonde ale. My distributor sent me the wrong damn beer. But I went into it with a preconceived notion. My audience did not. You guys were right. I hadn't smelled it yet, so I wasn't wrong, but my assumption was wrong. So don't hesitate to say, I smell asphalt. Because I don't know what your childhood was like. Fair? I promise not to laugh at you. I may laugh at you about other things, because it is a Renaissance festival and I need material. But when it comes to that, we'll be kosher. All right, those are the rules. Everybody understand? Questions, comments, rash political statements? That's the craziest question I ask all day, right? Yeah. Because at the moment, rash political statements is fascinating. All right. Last thing before we get started. I love questions. Please don't be shy. If you're wondering what's going on in the beer, if you've got a question, I'll be right back. If you've got a question, odds are pretty good somebody else in the audience is thinking the same question. Please, throw up a hand. Ask me what's going on. Throw it out there. I love questions. I can talk for the next hour about stuff I wanted to talk about, but if you don't leave here with your questions answered, we both failed. because you didn't ask and I didn't get a chance. Fair enough? All right, you had a question.
Is Accio beer a Harry Potter reference?
Yes, Accio beer. Yep, Harry Potter reference, bring me beer. It's more of a command, but that's okay. All right, so let's talk about beer. Let's talk about tasting beer. That's with a capital T, in case you couldn't tell. You've got a beer in your glass. I will tell you what it is after we're done learning how to taste, but I'm going to teach you how to taste first. And when I say teach you how to taste, I'm going to teach you how to judge the beer the way I judge beer when I do one of four things. When I'm judging beer at a competition, when I'm reviewing beer, I write for a place called centraltrack.com here in Dallas. I review local beer. This is how I evaluate the beer. Third way, third reason. I'm drinking a beer I've never had before. Fourth thing, I'm drinking a beer I've had a lot of that doesn't taste right. Then I back up, I start from the beginning, and I evaluate it, and I try and figure out what the hell's going on. All right, so this is how it works. We're visual, so the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our beer. When I say we're visual, I mean as a species, we're visual. Odds are very good. If you've got a significant other or ever had a significant other, before you ever met them, before you ever knew their name, before you ever talked to them, shook their hand, whatever it was, however you got introduced, you looked at them across the room, across the park, across the quad, wherever it was, and you thought, I'd hit that. Why? We're visual. Right? We like things with our eyes before we get to any other sense. Brewers know this. We want to make a pretty beer. So I want to look at my beer. I'm looking for three things: color, clarity, and head. Woo! We tell time differently around here. It's to my advantage. Color, clarity, and head. Head being the bubbles. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, we're going to discount the bubbles just a little bit during the show. And the reason we're going to do that is because you're getting a tasting pour, not a full pour. Right? A full pour would give you the benefit of all the carbonation. It would also give you the benefit of the glassware. A tasting pour stops at the fat part of the glass. The fat part of the glass does not support the head correctly. So it is going to recede faster than it would if we gave you a full 12 ounces that came all the way to the top of your glass. So when we talk about head, what I want you to look at is bubble size and color. In this case, you should be seeing fairly fine bubbles. At this point, after it's been in your glass a little bit, probably a thin skim across the top of your beer. Fairly fine bubbles with a few medium to large ones tossed in. White, by and large, like wedding dress white in this case. Now let's talk about color and clarity. Color in this case is going to be gold. By the way, I will give you the answers for beer 1. Beer 2 through 6, you get to pick your own answers. Gold. Clarity. This isn't exactly clear, but it's also not cloudy. I consider this beer like a great piece of lingerie. It hints at what's behind it, but it doesn't ever give you the details. Am I right? It's a little, I couldn't read a newspaper through it. Next step, we're going to smell the beer. By the way, this technique works for everything. You learned this? See, these two, actually, and you 4, right? You guys just came from Flynn's as well. Yeah, so these 2 and these 4 just came from Flynn's wine tasting. This should sound familiar. It's the exact same steps. We use the same thing: beer, wine, scotch, bourbon, food. Anything that you taste goes through this process. Look, smell, taste, basically. I want you to smell the beer. Stick your nose in the glass, take short, sharp sniffs. Long, deep sniffs work too, but here's the problem with those. They start to dry out your nasal cavity. A dry nasal cavity doesn't work as well as a moist nasal cavity. So you do not want to dry that out. Out of this beer, I get a lot of phenolics. Woo! Seamus just used a big word. Phenolics, basically spicy notes. If I say esters, think fruity notes. If I want to sound all hoity-toity, I use phenolics and esters. If I'm talking to a beer crowd and I don't care to sound like I know what I'm doing, I talk about fruity and spicy. Fair? Everybody with me so far? Mm-hmm. All right. This is fairly phenolic. I get a bit of black pepper, maybe a bit of coriander out of this. I also get a bit of malt underneath. And by malt, in this case, I'm thinking bread, cracker. It's not dark. There's no toast to this. There's no burnt aromas at all. Whatever I'm doing hasn't been cooked or baked. All right, with me so far? Now we're going to taste our beer. And this is the way I want you to taste it. I want you to take a comfortable mouthful, not too much, not too little. You need a bit of air in your mouth. You need to be able to swish it around. Hold it in your mouth for 7 to 10 seconds. Swirl it around. Coat your cheeks, coat the roof of your mouth, your tongue, floor, the whole bit. Feel it, taste it, think about it. Both taste and feel. This is 2 different senses we're working with here. Then I want you to swallow. And after you swallow, I want you to inhale across your tongue and exhale back through your nose. Let's all give this a go together, shall we?
Yes, it is.
My Lord says it tastes like Blue Moon. Anybody else think it tastes like Blue Moon? Tastes a little bit like cotton candy. That's interesting. All right. Do you understand why I had you inhale across your tongue and exhale back through your nose? Our sense of taste is 80% in our nose. Our mouth gives us 5 things, and 5 things only. Sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and something called umami. You're forgiven if you think I'm cussing at you in a Hindu subdialect. Umami is a flavor enhancer. Think the fatty end of the steak, think the juicy insides of the tomato. That's it. Our nose is what differentiates within those main categories. So our nose is what says that that sweet sensation we've got from our tongue is chocolate or caramel. Our nose is what differentiates the sour sensation as lemon or grapefruit or something else. Our mouth gives us 5 things that I just enumerated. Your nose gives you upwards of 10,000 different things. Think about the last time you had Mexican food with a head cold and what it tasted like. Your mouth was the only thing working, your nose wasn't. Do as I say, not as I do. In other words, don't chug your beer. Really? Have I offended you in a past life? All right. Let's talk a little bit about the beer that's in your glass. The beer that was in your glass that we tasted first is called Saison du Pont. It is a Saison-style beer. Saison is French for season. It is in the United States, you may run across Saisons that are called farmhouse ales. A lot of craft brewers call them farmhouse beers. Originally, these were beers brewed by farmers in the deep winter when they had extra stuff left over. Whatever they had extra, most of, they made their beer out of. So maybe this winter it was wheat. Next winter it would be malt. The winter after that, spelt something else. Doesn't matter. They brewed with it. Saison is a very broad style as it's defined by the Beer Judge Certification Program. Traditional Saisons, as brewed by French and Belgian farmers, were table beers. And what I mean by table beer is 2.5% to 4% alcohol. This was a beer that was served at the noonday meal to their workers in June, July, and August while they were tending the fields. You don't want anybody to fall out because they're smashed, right? So you serve a low alcohol beer. We don't do Saisons like that anymore. In fact, what I would call imperial Saisons are more likely in the American craft beer world. 7, 8, 9% is not uncommon. This is Saison du Pont out of Belgium. This is like 6.4, I think, something like that. Fairly beefy, for a Saison if we're talking about traditional numbers. Saison, one last thing about it before I move on to the next beer. Saison, my favorite food beer. I often do not drink Saisons alone. I don't find them appetizing by themselves. They are not what my buddy Flynn at the far end talks about couch wine. Couch wine is a wine, you get a good book, you sit on the couch, you drink your wine, you read your book. You don't need crackers or cheese or any type of food to go with it. It's just good by itself. This is not a good couch beer. Typical Saisons, I mean. Every now and again I find one that's all right, but usually I want food with it. It's great food beer. I keep them around. If I don't know what to serve with dinner, I break out a Saison. And then we work down in the beer tree from there. Next beer up. Next beer up is a Lambic. This is what I got you a second ago, darling. Next beer up is a fruited Lambic. Lambics are unique in the beer world. A lot of American craft brewers try to emulate Lambics. Lambic is probably as close to unique terroir. I'm going to steal the terroir in the wine world means of the area. The grapes are soaking in the minerals from the soil, the atmosphere. That grape will not grow the same way in another area of the world. So when we talk about a Bordeaux grape, it's because it was grown in Bordeaux. You can take that variety of grape and grow it somewhere in the United States. It will not produce the same wine because it's not the same soil composition, the same atmosphere, the same rainfall, the same sunshine. It just doesn't work. Lambics are much that way in the beer world. Lambics are fermented by the air in Belgium. They pump the unfermented wort into a cool ship on top of the brewery. A cool ship is a wide, shallow pool. Open to the night air, because they do this at night. They pump it up late in the afternoon, they let it sit overnight. And the air settles over the beer. And the microbes in the air are what is going to ultimately ferment that beer. It's a long process, usually takes 3 to 4 months. Long chain, everything happens in order, and if it doesn't happen in exact order, you don't get the same beer. The microbiology in that area of the world is absolutely 100% unique. You will never produce a Lambic beer anywhere but the Pajottenland or the area right around Belgium. The Pajottenland is a sub-region of Belgium to the southwest of Brussels. It's between the River Seine and the River Denga. Lambics are absolutely unique. This is a fruited Lambic. You can do a number of different things with it. You can serve a Lambic without fruit, hard to find in the United States. Other fruits that get used, apples, cherries, strawberries, peaches. They make Lambics in all those styles. This is a raspberry. It is called Framboise, which in French is raspberry. It's a bit sweet. It's a bit sour. By the way, you would never get a Framboise in Belgium that tasted like this. The Belgians eschew this type of beer. Why? It's been sweetened for the American palate. We like sweet shit. We're lousy about sugar in this country. In the old country, not so much. They would never serve this. A Belgian brewery would never serve this to a Belgian. They would hate it.
What's the line number?
They don't want it to be this sweet. They want to taste the sour. Here's a fun thing. When you do a Lambic without the fruit, they serve it with syrups. Different flavored syrups. And the Belgians get to flavor their own beer, much like IHOP with your pancakes. But they would never go this sweet with it. Woo! Thank you, man. May I have another?
Water.
She's very handsy, isn't she? Hey, so far, she's won all the rolls of the die. Otherwise, Phil would have got a handful.
You lost it.
Or it's just too sweet.
They're figuring out who gets to grab my ass.
Oh.
Oh, I'm glad you won.
You don't want to win?
Gets to or has to?
Ah.
Well, there you go. Make your choice.
I'm not going to play that.
Questions about Lambic? Questions about Saison? Anyone? It's really good. Yes, my lord.
What about an eau goose? Is that a kind of lambic?
A goose! I love a good goose. Yes, a goose is a style of Lambic, absolutely. Here's one of those goose. Here's one of those fun things. And I have surprised wine people, trained wine people. Serve a goose in a champagne flute. And oftentimes they don't know I'm giving them beer. It's that unique in the beer world. Highly carbonated, dry, a lot like a champagne. And you can totally substitute it for champagne in a lot of cases. I love a good goose. But yeah, it is a style of Lambic. Here's another thing. These are blended beers. We're used to blended scotch, right? Old, young, the whole kind of thing. This is a blended beer. Lambics, often they blend old and young together to get the finished product. Same with goose. Goose is always blended. Lambic's not always. Goose always blended. Usually 2 to 3 year old with 6-month-old. And they blend it down to get something that is smooth, easy drinking, recognizable as a goose. I'm going to finish the show with another blended beer. It is Easter, so now we're going to move on to religious beer. I feel like it's necessary, right? I know where I'm going, and I'm saving a seat for all of you when I get there, but you know, just in case you're of the other variety and want to go up, you know, we'll serve beer for monks. The Belgians have a lovely history of monk brewed beer. Trappist by name. To be Trappist, you've got to meet 3 criteria, all 3. Just meeting a couple doesn't work. Here are the 3 criteria to be a Trappist beer. The brewery must be located on monastery grounds. In other words, sacred ground, right? 2, brewing operations and commercial business operations must be overseen by monks. Doesn't mean that monks are doing the actual work, but they are managing the laymen that do the actual work. Last but not least, the brewery is not allowed to make a profit. After monastery expenses are paid, anything left over must absolutely go into charitable contributions for the community around the brewery. They are not allowed to profit from the beer. You have to meet those 3 criteria to be Trappist. A Trappist beer will have a hexagonal trademark symbol on the side of the beer. Butters and Jan are leaving bottles on the tables. You can look at the bottles from Chimay and see that hexagonal symbol. Monks have been brewing beer for commercial reasons for centuries. The first beer we're going to serve you here is Chimay. It is the Chameleon Red, which is a double. The Chimay Monastery, actually the monastery is known as Notre Dame d'Escoumont. Chimay is the name of the town it's closest to, and the colloquialism it's known by. The monks at Chimay released 3 beers officially. There's actually a 4th one. I got called on it in the last show by a buddy. It's hard to find in the United States. 3 beers are easy to find. The red, the white, and blue. The red is a double, the white is a triple, the blue is a quad. Chimay was founded in 1850. I think Butters, did you finish my beer?
What? You have fresh beer in there. I don't understand why you're complaining. What?
Tell him.
Yeah.
It's hard to find good help these days. The Chimay Red is a double. All right, so let's talk for a second about the designations: single, double, triple, and quad. If a single is brewed with 100 pounds of grain, a double is brewed with 200 pounds of grain. A triple would be brewed with 300 pounds of grain, and a quad, 400 pounds of grain. These designations are actually old. We use them, but they don't mean the same things anymore. And they don't mean the same things anymore because we're no longer using old grain. Now we're using modified grain. The grain has a higher yield in terms of starch and sugar. A single may only take 75 pounds of grain. A double may only take 140 or 150 pounds of grain. It's not identical up the scale now. Now when you hear the terms single, double, triple, and quad, you should think in terms of ABV. A single is 4 to 6, a double is 6 to 8, a triple is 8 to 10, and a quad is 10 and up. I have had quads as high as 14, 15, 16%. They're in the wine range. Fairly big beers. Originally, these beers were brewed by monks as a way to get through a fasting day. The human body is driven on sugar. These beers have a high level of residual sugar. They add sugar to the brew that is not fermentable by brewer's yeast. So the sugar hangs around after the fact. Hence the reason you're getting some sweet notes in this beer. You should also be getting dark fruit, raisins, plums, dates, all of those things, as well as dark malts.
Sweetness, no.
Monks no longer drink these beers for the most part. Monks drink beer that they do not release to the general public. Usually singles, referred to in the vernacular as Pater's beer, or Father's beer. It's a 4 to 6% daily brew that the monks drink. They often do not sell it commercially. There are 14 monasteries in the world that are certified Trappist. One in the United States, by the way, Spencer out of Massachusetts. 6 or 7 in Belgium, 1 in the Netherlands, 1 in Switzerland, 1 in Austria, 1 in Spain. I forget where they all are. 3 of them do not produce beer at all. So there are only 11 beer-producing Trappist monasteries. No, not that I'm aware of. The only one in the United States I'm aware of is Spencer in Massachusetts.
There's a monastery in Mexico that
And it may not be Trappist. It also may not. So, unofficially, all Trappist breweries are of the Cistercian monkish tradition, descended from St. Benedict. If they're not Cistercians, they wouldn't be Trappist. I don't know, but I'm not aware of a brewery in the United States outside of Spencer. And Spencer in Massachusetts is actually relatively new. It's only been around 5 or 6 years. The first year I did the Belgian show, there wasn't a Trappist brewery in the United States. In fact, the first year I did the Belgian show, there were only 10 Trappist breweries in the world. Period at the end. Most of them are in Belgium. Chameleon was founded out of West Flanders. West Flanders is another one. You can't find it in the United States. If you want West Flanders beer, you back your car up to their gates, you buy it from them, you put it in your trunk, you drive home, which is a little hard if you live in the U.S. I've been lucky enough to have West Flanders beer twice. It's from guys that bought beer and then traded it online or sold it on eBay. The monks frown on that, but they can't do anything about it, so it is what it is. Questions about doubles? Questions about Trappist beer? You guys are like really quiet.
So, I know Chameleon is like the big guy, right? Like that's
Yeah, Chameleon is probably the one that produces the most.
So, if we were out and about, more well-stocked beer and wine stores, are there others that you would particularly say, oh, keep your eye open?
All right, so other Trappist beers that I would recommend you look for. West Malt. anything by Westfall. Usually it's going to be a double, but I think we can get the Westfall triple in the Metroplex still. Rochefort, 6, 8, and 10. My personal favorite of all of the Trappist beers, Chameleon Red. I get asked all the time about, yes, my lord.
I was wondering how long it usually takes for one of these beers to actually be created.
Great question. How long does it take to make one of these beers? All of these beers are ales, so they ferment relatively quickly. I got you. They ferment relatively quickly. However, oftentimes these are aged just a little bit. As a general rule, Trappist beers, 4 to 8 weeks.
All right.
Before they're ready to drink. Now, you can absolutely age them for longer. I'm aging Chimay Blue at the house right now. On my 50th birthday, I bought a bottle of Chimay Blue. On my 51st birthday, I bought another bottle of Chimay Blue. And my 52nd. I'm going to stop there because you don't need to know how old I am. I've got a number of bottles on the shelf. When I can't stand looking at the bottles anymore, my friends and I are going to have the vertical tasting from hell. I personally know of Chimay Blue having been aged up to 18 to 20 years, which is significantly longer than most beers. Yes.
Is there a monastery in the world that brews one that's called It's a Trap? Because there should be, if they have it.
No, I do not know of a brewery that brews It's a Trap, but yeah, they're missing a bet, aren't they? Yes, my lord.
So I know these are corks, right? Some of these.
The first two were corks. Saison du Pont and the Framboise were corks. The Magnums, the 1.5, yeah, the 1.5, yeah, the 1.5s are absolutely corks.
I wasn't up.
Dispenser that you would stick some liquid through the cork, so you don't have to open the whole bottle, then you can just take a little bit out.
Yeah, it would probably work. It would probably, yeah. If it inserts an inert gas, yes, it would work. Here's the thing. Once you open a bottle of beer, much like a bottle of wine, it starts to oxidize. You've got a limited amount of time to live with it, yeah. So yeah, that would work. However, the beer quarts that are in quart beer bottles, denser quarts, yeah. And oftentimes have the mushroom cap on them. In fact, the 750s of Chimay Blue have the caps on them. Yep. Does it open up? All right, so the question was, does beer open up like a wine does after you let it sit? In other words, if I pour it in a, if I insert oxygen. The answer is yes to a degree, but it starts to oxidize faster than wine does. Part of the problem with beer is the fact that it's almost all carbonated. Once you release the pressure, that carbonation starts to come out of solution. You want some of it to come out, but you don't want it to go completely flat. This gets into proper pouring technique. A good bartender is your best friend when you're out on the town for an evening, and the reason for that is a bad pour leaves you feeling full and bloated. And the reason you feel full and bloated is because they didn't pour the beer right, so it didn't off-gas enough in the glass. The CO2 is going to come out of solution somewhere. Your bartender has a tremendous amount of control about whether or not it does it in the glass or in your gut. A bad pour means you're going to have CO2 and you're going to be gassy the rest of the night. A good pour means 4 or 5 beers and you're fine. So if you go someplace and you start feeling gassy almost immediately, full almost immediately, the bartender sucks. Go somewhere else. I'm throwing bartenders under the bus, but it is what it is.
How do you pour it well, though? Yeah, when you give us the tutorial on
How
how to
do you pour a beer? Oh,
pull one from it, just have
you grab a glass. A bottle. All right. Impromptu lesson on pouring a beer. I'm going to do this with a bottle. The same concept applies with a tap or a faucet. Right? Actually, those things on the walls, everybody calls it tap, they're actually a phosphorus thing. Tapping means you plug the keg into the system. The thing on the wall is not a tap. It's no. I want to pour a beer correctly. Glass at a 45-degree angle. Pour the beer down the side till you reach about 2/3 of a glass. Tip it up. Pour it straight down the middle. You want a firm, full head on the glass. That pour down the middle is what forces some off-gassing. That's a violent action in terms of beverage. So you get some off-gassing, you should get them roughly an inch. Depends on how well carbonated the beer is. But a general rule of thumb is an inch of foam on top of your beer. I sit in the bar all the time, and I listen to people who purport to know beer, the layman, right? Damn bartender gave me an inch of foam on my beer. I ordered a pint, and I got a bunch of foam. How shit is that? The reality is the bartender knew what they were doing. The person ordering the beer thinks they know what they're doing, but doesn't. They want what in the vernacular is referred to as a 0 pour. Means I got beer to the top of my glass, no foam. It's a lousy pour. Means you're stuck with a bunch of CO2 in your beer. It also means that that foam, which is bringing the aroma to your nose, is not present. And we've already talked about how important aroma is to your sense of taste, haven't we? So the next time you're sitting in the pub and you listen to somebody bitch about the fact that they got all this foam, write them off. They don't know what they're talking about. They want to sound important, but they're not. Ignore them. Same thing with a faucet. If I'm pouring from a keg, I walk up to the faucet. I stick my glass under the faucet at a 45-degree angle. I grab the handle and I open immediately, completely. I don't, none of this half mess, right? Open it fully. 2/3 of a glass underneath, straight down the middle violently, shut it off. It should top out right around the top. Give you an inch, give or take. That's a properly poured beer. Now, is that perfect for every beer style? The answer is no. Anybody here love Hefeweizens? Do I have any Hefeweizen fans in the audience? You're a Hefeweizen? All right. Have you had a Hefeweizen in a vase? A really tall glass with a big bulb at the top? A properly poured Hefeweizen should have 4 or 5 inches of head on the top of the beer. Wow, you won all the dice throws today.
Pretty bad when you lose, you gotta squeeze it.
Pour it on. You were throwing dice to lose, weren't you?
So, if you have a bottle of beer that you're on in your fridge,
Yes.
how long does it on average stay good?
Great question. If I have a bottle of beer in my fridge, how long does it stay good? What style?
Let's say an IPA. I don't like IPA, but I gave him a very cool IPA a couple of days ago.
IPA. I personally don't buy an IPA older than 60 days. I don't drink an IPA older than 90 days. And if it's a hazy IPA, I don't buy it over 30 days and I don't drink it over 60. Why? The hop flavor starts to diminish as soon as the beer is finished. Period. As soon as you bottle it, it is starting to degrade. If you want to age beer, which is kind of the reverse of your question, right? Can I age beer? The answer is yes. Here are the rules for aging beer as far as I'm concerned, and most professionals. Darker beer ages well, higher alcohol beer ages well. Lower alcohol beer, lighter colors, not so much. That's why I'm doing the Chimay Blue. It's a dark beer, it's 9%. It'll go a long time. Even then, your typical beer, 3 to 5 years is the most you want to age it. Beer is produced to be consumed now. By the way, I don't know if Flynn covered this in your show. Wine, by and large, on the shelf now, designed to be consumed now. Not designed to age. Winemakers, by and large, are not making wine to age. Neither are brewers. You can find wine and beer that's okay to age. Ask people at your local Total Wine, your Specs, wherever it is you go to buy booze. They can probably point you to wines and beers that are better to age. If I'm going to age a beer, it's going to be a strong Belgian strong ale. It's going to be a quad. It's going to be a Russian Imperial Stout, an Imperial Porter. Maybe if I can find an Imperial Brown or Imperial Amber, yes. Anything other than that, probably not. Oh, strong ales. American and English, I'll age those as well. Because they're darker and higher alcohol content. Answer your question?
Is there a way to actually age a hopped beer?
Is there a way to age a hopped beer? Mm-hmm. Not really. You can age it. Here's the thing. The longer you age a highly hopped beer, the sooner you have a malt bomb, not a hop bomb.
All right.
Because the hops are going to degrade over time. So take an Imperial IPA, and a year later, that Imperial IPA is going to taste more like an Imperial Amber or a strong ale. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. What do we have in the glass now? We've got the triple in the glass. You're about to pour the quad. All right, so let's talk real quick about triples. And what I want to talk about with triples is pairing it with food. This is my Thanksgiving Day beer. This is what I have with turkey and dressing and cranberry sauce. I don't use this specific beer. I usually use Le Fin du Mont from Unibrew out of Montreal. But this beer would work equally well. Triples are big, effervescent answers to Pilsners. They're usually 8 to 10%. Pilsners are about half that. The Belgians were trying to combat the Pilsner movement in the late 1800s. They created a light beer that looks like Pilsner with a higher alcohol content that's a bit fruitier, a bit spicier, goes fantastically well with food. I serve Le Fin du Mont every single Thanksgiving day. Goes great with everything on my table. It's a fantastic broad range food beer. Is it a good couch beer? Can be. Depends on the triple. This is a pretty solid couch beer. Le Fin du Mont, pretty good couch beer. I've had triples suffer without food. So it's an either, yeah, you got to kind of dig around and look. Might be the alcohol. However, this doesn't taste like a high alcohol beer, does it? Yeah.
This would couch you. What is the if you drink another couch?
ABV on this is, give me a second, because I'm old and have to wear my glasses. Might not be on here.
8.4. 8.4.
Where'd you find that? On the back. That's where all the small words are. 8.4. Hey, so on the back of the bottle is another thing I want you to notice. There is a date. There is a date on this bottle. In this case, I'm going to extrapolate and assume this is a bottled date. 12/5/21. This beer is 4 months old. I encourage you to look for dates on your beer. Here's a trick. Total Wine, Specs. They have a shelf for singles. Be really careful about checking the dates on the singles. That is where Total Wine and Specs put the old beer to get rid of it. So if you're buying singles, check the dates, especially if it's an import beer. German, English, Belgian. 4-packs and 6-packs that have been sitting on the shelf for a while get broken up and stuffed on the single shelf. Maybe they're a year old. Maybe they've been under the fluorescent lights for a while. Maybe they're skunked. They may not be great beer anymore. I'm very careful about buying my singles. I love Specs, I love Total Wine, they're great guys. They're in business, they're trying to get rid of beer, right? They're trying to sell beer. If it's not moving off the shelf in a 4-pack or a 6-pack, they find another way. So watch yourselves when you're buying the singles. You could get some lousy stuff accidentally. Yes, Mama. Woo! I love this question. Regional water chemistry. Says the guy that boils water. See, you get it. You get it, don't you?
I boil water.
Stan gets it. All right. Beer, anywhere from 90 to 98% water, depending on style. That's a lot of water.
Conversely, I'd never want to get the ring.
Water chemistry changes from one region to the next, from one municipality to the next. Very different. Pilsner would have never been created in Munich. The water in Munich is too hard. The water in Pilsen is very soft. Easy to create. How does water chemistry matter? The biggest thing I can say about water chemistry, I get asked all the time, what do you think about macro beer? Big beer. How do you feel about Budweiser, Coors, Miller? They all have their place. If you've been coming to my show for a while, you know I don't bag on big beer. I'm not ugly about it. I don't drink a lot of it, but it has its place. When I go to the Globe Life Park in Arlington and I get an outfield seat for 12 bucks or whatever it is today, and I get a hot dog and it's July and they got the roof open, do I want an IPA? Fuck no. I want a Coors Light with my hot dog because I don't have to think about it. B, it's light. It goes well with the hot dog. I can watch my baseball game. All is good. Water chemistry. Where was I going with this? Budweiser in Dallas tastes like a Budweiser in Washington, D.C., which tastes like a Budweiser in London, Paris, Munich, Kiev. I used to say Moscow. We don't talk about Russians anymore. Now it's Kiev. Bangalore, Beijing, Tokyo, Honolulu, San Francisco. 14 different breweries they make that beer at. 14 different water chemistries coming into the brewery. People don't understand this about ABM though. They fly beer in, charter, every single day to St. Louis from every brewery worldwide. They have a panel of people that have forgotten more about beer than I will ever know to taste this beer every day, 7 days a week. And if one of those guys goes, this beer doesn't taste right, everybody in the room loses their shit. Why? Budweiser has made its name off you being able to buy a Bud anywhere in the world and it tastes the same. And it's all because they can balance the water chemistry to a micro milligram at a level that most of us will never understand. That is, I consider beer to be equal parts art and science. The art is creating the recipe. The science is being able to reproduce it over and over again. Garrett Oliver, one of my heroes in the brewing world, is quoted on film in a movie as having said, if you can't produce the same beer over and over again, that doesn't mean you're a craft brewer. It means you can't fucking brew. Most craft brewers cannot produce the same beer over and over again. It's hard. I've been a home brewer for 15 years. I've never produced the same beer twice. 10 of those years I lived in Dallas. I got exactly the same water out of the tap every single time. Couldn't produce the same beer. It's hard. Hard. Do I like AB InBev as a corporation? The answer is no. Do I appreciate the beer that they produce? This is the quad. Shit. Now I'm a beer behind.
We can help. We can help.
I'm a professional. I don't need help.
You're being
What? Good. All right. The beer you just finished is a quadruple. Did that answer your question? You're very well. The beer you just finished is a quadruple. It is from La Trappe. La Trappe is where we get the term Trappist. They are the first Trappist brewery. Oddly, for a while, they were in the middle of legal stuff with other Trappist breweries about whether or not they could call themselves Trappist. I find that interesting, right? Had to do with oversight and how much the monks were involved. Jan and Butters are pouring beer 6. I want to do some housekeeping real quick while they're doing beer 6. Housekeeping. At the bottom of your tasting notes, all of the ways you can talk to Seamus in social media. The show has a Facebook page. I'm the only one that has admin access. I answer all the direct messages. I answer all of the posts that are put up. Feel free to reach out to me through the Facebook page.
Most of them are lying.
Also down there is my Twitter handle and my Untapped handle. It's my real name. Now you know who I am. Do what? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, no, feel free to follow me on Untapped. I don't turn away any friend requests. Here's the thing. You want to see what Seamus is drinking? Great. You want to see how big a lush Seamus is? Awesome. I check in every single beer, whether I've had it before or not. If you've had a good time today, and I hope you've had a good time today, and you're thinking, this would be awesome to do at home with my friends. Great news, you can take Seamus home with you. I do this privately. We'll come in and do beer tasting, we'll do beer dinner. It's a turnkey operation. Your kitchen is as clean as it was when I'm done, as it was when I got there. That's the good news. It might also be the bad news in case your kitchen is filthy, because I'll leave it filthy. If you're a divided household, you like beer and wine, I'll bring my buddy Flynn. It's a big evening, we're a lot to handle. Just saying. Well, let's see. All right, so that's social media, that's private shows. Oh! This is a tip jar. I get nothing from the jar. Butters and Jan have worked very hard for you today. They're taking care of your service. They plated your food, they put it on the table. Autumn got you seated, got you a glass. Butters and Jan poured your beer. In a few minutes while you're busy asking me questions you were too afraid to ask in front of the entire audience, they'll be busking your tables. This jar is for them. Please put something in the jar for Butters and Jan. I'm going to give the jar to Autumn. She's going to walk around. Please take care of them. Now, beer 6. Oh, one other thing. All of the beers you've had today are available at the bar. Eddie, raise your hand. Where is it?
On a bio break. It's me.
There's Eddie. Eddie's in the beret. That's sexy. All right. Ed will have all of these beers after the show is over. So you're good. So if you've had something you particularly enjoy, go see Ed get a pint. Set your happy ass back in your chair. and enjoy the wildly inappropriate poetry of my friend Arthur Greenleaf Holmes. It's terribly inappropriate and probably too old for me. Still too old for me. All right. Hey, woo! When I set this show up, I gambled that you guys were going to be willing to listen to me for beer 6. Oftentimes when I do this show, I lose the audience about beer 4 because, well, it's beer 4 and you guys been drinking. And now everybody at the table is your new best friend. I really want to talk about beer 6 because it's kind of unique in the beer world. I almost poured beer 6. What do you think of that? Great. All right. You like this? Beer 6 is sour. Beer 6 is Rotenbach, red and through. This is a blend again. We take an old beer, 2 to 3 years old, we blend it with a 3 to 6 month beer, and we get this. It's a Flanders Red is the type style. I get looked at funny when I talk about sour beer. Yeah, but it's amazing. Yeah. This is one of those beers that I would serve at a fine dinner. Someplace where I might serve a Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, Big Zin. Totally replace it with this beer. My personal opinion on Guinness. I love Guinness. Guinness is actually how I got into good beer. Bodied by Guinness. I had a 6-pack before Guinness, now I have a gut. Yeah, I used to be sexy. Then I found Guinness. What? All right. Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh.
I don't have that.
Yes.
I'm working on it.
All right. Hey. So the question was about Guinness. Do they use some type of fish products? The answer is yes. A lot of beers do.
Really?
It's called a fining. A fining, F-I-N-I-G. Yeah. Right. Exactly. It's called a fining. You add the fining during fermentation, and it forces a lot of the solids to fall out of the beer, leaving you with a much more clear beer. A lot of breweries use finings. Right. Some fish products, gelatin, there are a lot of different ways to go about doing it. There's nothing wrong with it. All right, lords and ladies. This largely brings us to the end of the beer tasting today. I would like to remind you of all the housekeeping notes I gave you a minute ago. I'd like to thank you for coming out for Belgian weekend. I'd like to wish you a happy Easter. On behalf of Butters, Jan, Autumn, the Village Green Beard Garden staff, i.e. Ed and Jesse, and Scarborough Renaissance Festival admin Seamus, thank you for coming out today. Please come back and see us next weekend. Next weekend we will be doing something I fondly call blind date. We will teach you to blind identify styles for fun and profit. Because your friends are willing to bet you that you can't tell them what you're done. I think it's... Thank you. Have a safe journey home. Come back and see us.